Hello and welcome to the Aid Station. I'm Chris Robb, and today hugely excited to be heading over to Monaco to meet Jon Ridgeon, the CEO of World Athletics. Hey John, great to see you again.
And you, Chris. Good to be here.
Mate, it's been a lot of change in the world since we last caught up in Singapore at Mass Participation World, and it was great to see you there. You've got an amazing story, successful athlete, double Olympian, World Athletics silver medalist in the 110 hurdles. But maybe we just start by a little bit of your background, please.
Well, yeah, I spent my life in sport, as you just said. I started off as an athlete, and then on retirement, I moved into sport broadcast and the world of sport business. And look, across my journey, I guess I've done most elements of athletics. So I've been a meeting organizer and have organized top one-day meetings over the years. I was one of the founders of the Diamond League some 10 years ago now. I've run a couple of businesses, founded a couple of businesses been based around mass participation sport, running triathlon, cycling. So yeah, my life has been kind of athletics, which is why I'm so excited to be here doing this job, because it feels like the combination of all my experience over the years has come to this. I've been here in place now a year and a quarter. Brilliant to be working with Sebco, the president, the team here. And look, I can still say a year and a quarter in, I genuinely love what I'm doing. I wake up excited every morning, but it's not to say I don't wake up with a long list of challenges every day. So look, it's a tough gig, but it's something I'm immensely enjoying, and genuinely are immensely optimistic about the future. I think, look, we've all faced, different to we've all faced a really big, challenging, frustrating year, but I think we've all learnt lots of new lessons. And look, I think we can come out of this with some new lessons learned, and I think the sport can kick on from this. I really do.
Yeah, look, and that's a theme that I'm hearing more and more, and I learn something about you every time I speak to you. I hadn't realized you were one of the founders of the Diamond League, and that's, amazing to be in a position where you were the founder, and you're making some changes to that to move with the times, which we could maybe touch on as we move forward. But love to hear. We were just talking before we came on air that you've been based in London, and you've just recently come back to Monaco. The office was closed in March and reopened. Maybe just a little bit of what's life like now and what's happened over the last couple of months.
Yeah, so we closed the office early March, and the office was closed for about 11 weeks. The work went on. Like everyone else, we learned new skills, and we spend a lot of time on our screens now, talking to each other like this via Zoom and Teams and all the rest of it. But yeah, we closed the office for 11 weeks. Because there was a certain amount of activity we couldn't do, we took the right, sensible steps and furloughed about 6% of the staff. But the good news is now, life certainly here in Monaco is getting back to normal. It feels pretty normal now. And we opened the office again on June the 2nd, and we're just building the amount. There's about a third of us back here at the office at the moment. Next week, 2/3 come back. And I think by August 1st, we'll pretty much have the full team back here in Monaco. And we'll be working in more conventional patterns, but hopefully also not forgetting the new skills we've learned as well. Because one of the things I guess I'm proudest of, but we've all done it, is we've really embraced connectivity and communications more. And actually, in many ways, I feel more connected now to many elements within the sport that I didn't used to speak to very often, that we now speak very regularly. So I've just come off, for example, a session we've done with our 214 member federations, where weekly now we bring all our federations together and we talk about what the hot topics are, be it, how we're coming out of COVID-19, be it the Athletics Integrity Unit have just done a session. So these are the sort of things we've created during the COVID crisis, which I really hope we can continue. So look, it's been frustrating, but it feels like we're in a build phase again. And I also think from middle of August as well, we're going to get sort of, what should I say, conventional athletics back up and running as well. Now, it may not be completely as we've known it before, but I think we can all look forward to seeing some great track and field and some great road races across the rest of the year as well.
That's fantastic to hear, and certainly it hasn't been without its challenges. As you say, working remotely, bringing people together. I'd love to hear what some of the biggest challenges are that you've dealt with, Jon. Apart from having to work from home back in London with your children in the home, which I'm guess is a challenge that all of us parents can relate to. But you said it was wonderful to be back in the office. What are some of the biggest challenges and toughest decisions you've had to make in this period?
I just sent the kids on a run every day, so they're fitter than they've ever been. So that was good. So look, I think the challenges fall around just having to re-engineer the organisation. So it's furloughing staff, and just make sure you do that in a way that everyone stays connected, and that's a sensible thing to do when you can't deliver all of the activities that we normally do. Fortunately, we're just coming out the other side of that, but that's a huge amount of work, and trying to get that right. Also, we've had a whole series of championships, such as the World Under-20 Championships and the World Race Walking Championships and the World Indoor Championships that we've had to move to next year and beyond. Moving the Olympics meant we had to move by a year the World Athletics Championships in Eugene, and that's easily said, but when you actually get into the detail of the global calendar and trying to find slots, it's really tough. Also, we've been in the middle of re-engineering this summer's track and field program, and we've shifted it all from the middle of August through to the middle of October, and I believe we will have a good number, not the full season, but a good number of events. And then there's just all the activity around coping with COVID-19, and we've established the Athletes Welfare Fund, which is all about helping international athletes through this really tough time, and we're going to grant some money to 193 athletes across 58 member federations. We've created the Outbreak Prevention Task Force, which is about helping race organisers put events on this year. So these are the sort of activities. So Chris, I promise you, we haven't been idle, and it's just trying to respond to what's happening, but also looking at the long term as well. So we've also launched over the last month or so a new 4-year World Athletics strategic plan. We've launched a sustainability plan for the next 10 years. So it's both dealing with the immediate crises, but also trying to do some long-term planning at the same time.
Which is a fantastic opportunity. And, one of the things you touched on before is this bringing people together on a regular basis. I think this, particularly in the mass space, I'm seeing this collaboration that's never happened before, all these verticals of people working in silos. And I think it presents so many great opportunities, as you mentioned, tweaking and changing some concepts up. I think we're going to be in for some really exciting stuff once we eventually get over this. And obviously, quite a lot of leadership taken there, or not quite a lot, a huge amount of leadership taken there. I always like to ask a question around leadership. Obviously, you're a leader yourself, but sometimes it's interesting to hear, where do you take your cues from? What are some of the leadership tips that you've learned over the years, and some of the critical kind of leadership values that you operate with, Jon?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Look, I'm really lucky. I work with the president, Seb Coe, who's I think an exceptional leader. So I have a pretty good role model to follow, and that's good. And what he has done, and we have tried to do here in terms of leadership, is just be very visible. Kind of make sure we're there speaking to people. Hence the fact we've created all sorts of regular sessions with all our key stakeholders, be it member federations, be it area presidents, be it our commissions, be it the athletes, whatever. So to be there talking and hopefully leading on many of the issues. I think what's been a key area to us, because our sport thrives on competition. So we've tried to be, again, at the forefront of leading competition back. So not only were we the first here at World Athletics to stage live athletics, the ultimate garden clashes with pole vaults and multi-eventers. And look, it was a bit of fun to get us going. But now actually the serious work of the global calendar unit here, working with Diamond League, working with the Continental Tour, working with the meeting organisers to reschedule the season to make sure we have a logical season that can work. So that's a big bit of leadership work. And then also moving to the sort of the road running mass participation area, it's to create tools to help those meeting organisers, get their events up and running. So the creation of the Outbreak Prevention Task Force has been really important to create, I guess, a risk assessment tool that, and probably the World Marathon Majors, don't need our assistance, but there's many organisers out there that don't have the bandwidth or the capacity to deal with some of these issues. So we're just creating tools there that race organisers can use just to help them plan, risk assess, and mitigate some of the issues of bringing people together so they can stage events. Because we want to see. We don't just want to sit back and wait until next year and say, well, let's hope it's all better next year and we can get back to normal. We want to push the boundaries and get athletics back as quickly as we can, but clearly as safely as we can at the same time, Chris. So we've tried to take leadership positions. Like all of us, we've been learning as we've gone along. But I think I think this is pulled together our sport very well, and I think some of the innovation we're seeing has been really, really, really smart. For example, the Impossible Games we saw from Oslo the other day. Talk about creating an event where you've got to, you can't bring people together. There's social distancing. You can't travel, and yet they still created an international meeting, which I thought was a great example of innovative things.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and clearly, one of the things we're seeing is this massive pent-up demand for people to have live sport. I mean, the example I've cited a couple of times is, New Zealand. Eden Park sold out for a Super Rugby match. That corresponding fixture would have probably had 10 to 15,000, 43,000 people in, and I think it's going to be no different with athletics and no different with road events. And I think something I'd love to touch on, and we spoke about it at MPW in Singapore, the whole health element. On one level, it's been incredible to see this explosion of people running and cycling all over the world. I was talking to someone the other day saying, bike shops had Christmas every day until they ran out of stocks, and now they've closed doors because there's no more bikes to sell in some instances. But, there's clearly going to be some positives and some challenges out of this in terms of mental health and so on. And I know you're so passionate, and World Athletics sees that as part of their mission now, supporting health and well-being in the community. Anything more kind of developed in that space, in amongst all those other hundreds of things that you've been doing in terms of new initiatives?
Yeah, no, absolutely. A key part of our new 4-year strategic plan is that we're the international federation for all of athletics. And a big part of that is doing our bit, and it's only our bit along with lots of other partners, but it's doing our bit to help grow the running market, because I think we all passionately believe that exercise is good for you, but particularly running is good for you. And I saw some really interesting research the other day from Run Repeat that talked about, and this was across some 130 countries, there's been an 88% increase in activity from people during lockdown. So this was during April, I think that the month was, and which is really interesting. And the biggest element of that was, of course, more people running. It's the most accessible, the most easily obtainable sport. So I think it gives us a really, really interesting opportunity. And the sort of things that we're now focusing on to hopefully keep those people connected to our sport is that we want to be a real campaigning organisation. We've always campaigned, but we want to dial up the importance of campaigning, using Seb's voice, for example, a global voice, but also our area and member federations to lobby governments and work on things like clean air, for example, to make sure that when we do get more people running, they're actually doing themselves good. But also just lobbying and working harder to make sure that we get more people moving through running. We're also reviewing all of our activity around the road running space, be it looking at our, for example, World Half Marathon Championship coming up in October in Gdynia. We want to look at potentially aggregating that and bringing new elements to that championship, be it massification events, be it a new World Mile or 10K championships, just to build that into a bigger event. And at the same time, we're looking at everything we're involved in road running, be it the label program, be it the rules and regulations, just to make sure we review everything and say, right, let's make sure our involvement helps grow the sport and doesn't help hinder the sport. So I think over the next few months, we'll have further announcements around our involvement in the road sector, just to make sure that, as I said, we're just one of many players, but we're doing our bit to support the phenomenal work of the race organisers and this growth of activity in athletics.
Sounds fantastic, Jon. Love to finish on, as I always do, on an inspiring story, and I'm sure you've inspired many people. I remember as a young fella watching you at Crystal Palace. But any
Those were
great
the
stories?
days.
That those were the days, weren't they? When it was packed out at Crystal Palace and you could barely get a ticket. But any inspiring stories that stand out from any aspect of, whether it be COVID or an athletic experience?
Well, I think two things. If I can do two, I think first of all, it's the incredible innovation and drive I see from so many organisers of events, be it road or track and field, determined to get their events up and running in some form this year. And I've already referenced Oslo, the Impossible Games. Zurich Diamond League is going to do the inspirational games early next month. I know all sorts of work is going on in the road running community as well to get athletes back up and running. So that's, we inspired because, the reality is people are not doing it because they want to make money out of this. They're doing it because they love our sport and want our sport to work. And, my God, people are putting in the hours at the moment. So a big celebration of all those people. But I think I'm gonna finish with an inspirational quote. So we have every couple of weeks we bring all our area presidents together, okay? And we were on a call last week, and just our Oceania president, Robin Sapong Eugenio, said a brilliant quote last week, which I'm just going to share with you. I'm saying this to everyone at the moment. I'm challenging all of us here at World Athletics to be more like this. So this is what Robin said. He said it's like the difference between a sea cucumber and a sea eel. A sea cucumber just stays in the sand, moving the direction of the wave, waiting for the next tide to come. But a sea eel moves and goes down and hunts for food. That's the mentality we have here in Oceania. We can't wait for the next high tide to come. We have to be adaptive. So I guess the challenge to all of your listeners, we have to be more like a sea eel and less like a sea cucumber. And I thought that quote was absolutely brilliant. So that's my inspiration for the week.
What a powerful way to end. That's wonderful. Jon, always a pleasure to catch up. Thank you so much. Thanks for making the time in that very busy schedule. Enjoy being back in Monaco, and hopefully it's not too long before we see each other face to face again.
I hope so. Thanks very much, Chris. Good to speak.
Thanks, Jon.